Spawning new processes on AO the computer can happen in different ways. And in this video, we shall see how you can spawn your process from the CLI, from your code programmatically, from your Lua file, and also from the SDK, which means you can also spawn processes from your front end. So now that I've navigated to this folder, I'm just going to do the easiest thing. And by the way, for this to work in the CLI, you need to have AO installed and Node.js version 20 plus installed. But this is not a tutorial for that. So I'm going to assume you already have AO installed on your computer. So AOS. So you're going to run AOS. I'm going to call this process CLI spawn. And you can name your process however you want. So if I click enter, this is going to spawn a new process, and you'll see the process ID that is here. And you can start playing with your process however you want. To confirm that this process has been spawned, I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to copy this process ID and come here and go to AO-Link. AO-Link is the AO Explorer. So this is going to take a couple of seconds to load. And then once this has loaded, I'm going to search for this process ID, which is the process that I've just created. And to confirm this, you're going to see one thing here, which is the name. The name of this process is CLI spawn, which means this process is already on AO testnet and it has been spawned successfully from the CLI. So I'm just going to quit this and clear. The next way to spawn a process is to spawn a process programmatically from your code base. And to do this, I'm just going to go to my VS Code and create a new folder here. And I'm going to call this, new spawn. You can call your folders whatever you want. And in here, I'm going to have a file called index.lua. So in this file, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function, right? Or a handler that I'm going to call. And that handler is going to create for me a process programmatically, right? So what I'm going to do is to do it handlers.add. And this takes in a couple of parameters. The first parameter is the name to identify your handler. I'm going to call this create process. And the second handler that you take that this takes in, or the second parameter, is the action tag that this function is going to respond to. And in my case, it's going to be an action called create. And the last thing is the function that is going to execute. And this is where we shall spawn our process programmatically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do AO.spawn. So after doing AO.spawn, you need to specify the module that is supposed to be used to spawn your process. So in my case, I'm just going to say local module equals AO.env.module.id. And this parameter is available when you create your process, right? Or like it's available as a global parameter on AO. So now, after doing this, I'm just going to pass here the module. Other than the module, you have to pass a couple of other parameters. So you can pass in any number of tags you want. You can pass in any data you want. So in my case, I need to pass in a tag, which is one of the most important tags to specify which messaging process you need to use in order to start relaying messages around the network. Without this, your process is not going to be able to receive any messages or react on any messages. So you need to put authority, and the authority tag here is this process ID, which is, I think, the default for like most of them, most of the processes. So if you forget to put in this, your process is not going to be able to like receive messages. You have to basically sort of whitelist this messaging unit. And also you can add a couple of other tags. For instance, if we put here name, I'm going to say programmatic spawn, just so that when we go to AO-Link, we can really see that this is the process that we just created here programmatically. Probably I can do one thing just for fun. I'm going to say action equals subscribe. Yep. And we shall see this subscribe on AO-Link. And yeah, you can actually subscribe to my channel so that you get more tutorials regarding AOD computer. And because this code that you've written here has to run somewhere in order to create other processes, we're going to basically load this code on our process that we created on the CLI and then help us create new processes. So we're going to consider this as our spawning process. So if you want to load your code from the CLI, you just do .load and then the path to your file. In my case, it's going to be new spawn / index.lua, right? And by doing this, your code is being loaded to your process. So now what I'm going to do, since I have a handler here that says create, I'm going to send a message to that process to basically tell it, hey, I want you to create for me a new process, right? And so I think the one thing that we can do though is to log or like to receive back a message saying, hey, here's the process ID that you've just created, right? So I want to say our process ID is going to be equals to AO.spawn. And then you can say receive, right? And this receive is sort of doing like an asynchronous or like waiting for this to happen and then return for you a process ID. And the last step is we shall send back a message to our main process that is creating other processes and tell it to just log our new created process, and that we shall copy that link and try it on AO.link to see if our process has been created. So here that is going to be process ID. Yeah, this process ID that we receive back, and we shall see how all that works. So you need to save this and head back to this CLI to load the latest code, right? So you do this load again, and that is going to load the latest code. But before we run this code to see if our things work, I forgot something here is I need to look for the tag that I want, because this receive basically is a message that comes back to the process after creation. So you need to specify what you're looking for. And in my case, I'm looking for the tags array. And within the tags array, I'm looking for this process. So this process parameter holds the value of the process ID. And this is what I want to return. That is one thing that I had forgotten right there. So again, one more time, I'm loading that code and then I'm going to send the message. Here to send the message, I can do send target. The target is going to be equal to AO.ID because I'm sending the message to this same process. And the action is going to be equal to create. And I need to close all this. But before I send the message, let me explain what's happening here. So basically, I'm sending a message to my own process that I already loaded with this code. And I'm like, hey, whichever handler you have and it has the action of create, do whatever that handler has to do. That I have to add this action of create. And as you can see, the action of create is right here. If we do a mistake, nothing is going to happen because we don't have another handler to handle something else. So let's say instead of create, we say create, or whatever that means. You will see it's going to come back as another message that is unhandled. So message added to outbox and message coming back create, because the code that the process holds doesn't have any handler to react to this. So let's get back to our normal create function and see and watch live a process being created programmatically. So if I hit enter, we should be able to see a message coming back with the data, which is the process ID, and we shall look that up on AO-Link to confirm that everything worked as expected. Well, that doesn't seem to work as expected. I think the issue here could be because of this receive. I think it's supposed to be lowercase receive. Let me just save that and see if this is going to work. I might have made a mistake there. So I need to load that code again and then send my create function. Now let's see what happens in this case. The process has been added to Outbox. Let's give it a second to see if our message comes. Yep. And as you can see in this case, we receive a message back with data and this process ID. So now I'm just going to do this inbox to get to that message and see the data so that we can copy that process ID. And as you can see, this is a huge message, but data is here. So we copy this process ID, and to confirm that this was really created, we shall go to Aeolink and double check that. So now back to Aeolink, we put this process ID here, we click enter, and we should be able to see our process that has been created. So we go to that process. As you can see, the name is there, that is Pragmatic Spawn. Or you can see this other side, the action that is subscribe, and the name, which is Programmatic Spawn. And these are these two tags that we added here, which confirms that if you do this way, you're going to programmatically create a process or processes. Because if we redo this process a couple of other times, we're going to spawn new processes, but we don't want to do that. Just wanted to show you how it works. So I'm going to quit this. Done the CLI creation way. We've done it programmatically. And now we're going to go to the last step, which is using the SDK, the PermaWeb / AeoConnect SDK. But before we do that, I'm going to create another folder and I'm going to call this SDK Spawn, just so that like we separate things. And in this SDK Spawn, I'll navigate to that folder, SDK Spawn. But now that we're going to install a package, I'm just going to initialize a package.json here. Npm init-y. This is going to initialize a package.json, and then we shall be able to to download our SDK and then spawn a process. So as you can see here under SDK spawn, we now have a package.json. So we go to here to npm, and the package is called at PermaWeb / AeoConnect. So you just need to click npm install and then install the package. Here you just do npm I, and that is going to install the package. So the thing that we're going to do is we shall have this index.js that is going to help us spawn the process. And for this to work, we need to come to the documentation and look for this spawn. There is a method or a function called spawn that we can utilize. So with no further ado, I'll just copy this and paste it right here. So as you see, we are importing create signer and spawn from PermaWeb at AeoConnect. But now that we are not going to use the browser directly, we need to find a way of having this wallet in our stuff. But if you're using a browser, you can just do window.archive wallet. But here we're using Node.js. And if you wonder why this await is not going to fail at a higher level, it's because we are using Node.js 22. So from Node.js 20, or I think Node.js 18, you can just do a top level await. So now there are a couple of other things that we need to pass. In this case, we are not going to pass any data, so this remains like that. We shall pass a couple of tags, and while using Node JavaScript, it's a different way of passing. There is a different way of passing tags. Basically, what you do is here you do name, and this name is going to be equal to name. That's going to be the name of our process. And now you do value, and this value is going to be SDK spawned process, just so that we make sure this was spawned from the SDK. right? And the CLI equivalent of this would be something like this. Let me just put that here. Would be equal, like, name equals SDK spawn process, or the Lua version of it if you want to. So that is how it works. If you check back here, how we added a name in Lua is like name and this. But from this side, you need to do it differently, right? And this is how you do it using JavaScript. So we shall come back to the wallet at some point, but then we need to add a module and a scheduler. So what I'm going to do is I'll just say const module equals, and there is, I believe this is the latest module ID as per the time of recording this video, but because these modules keep changing according to versions. But right as of the time of recording this video, this is the latest module ID. I'm also going to add a scheduler here. And the scheduler is going to be the same value of authority that we had put the other side, right? So this same value here. And just to make sure everything works well, we shall again log the process ID and check that on AOLink. So let me just double check if everything is as expected. Oh, one last thing that we need to do is to bring in the wallet. So I'm just going to say wallet. So this is going to be FS, and I'm going to import this from Node. From Node FS file structure. Yeah, like that. And then this is going to be read file sync. And I'm going to paste here the path to the file. But I need to first create that file. And in this case, the file is, I'm going to call that file wallet.json. And of course, you always had to add this to a git ignore so that you never upload that on GitHub by mistake. So here I'm going to do wallet.json. I'm going to save this, come back here. I'm going to add my key file here, or my GWK, and you can get yours from your rconnect or Wanderer because it has rebranded, and put it in here. Never share that with anyone. So I'm going to put that in and close this file. Okay, so now that I have my wallet.json here, I'm just going to put wallet.json, and this should work. But I've just realized that I did one thing. I created a folder here, but all my files are outside, so I'll need to bring them in here just for consistency. I'll also bring this one in here and move it in there, right? To have our wallet and our index. This should work just fine. I'm going to close this file, come back to my CLI, and navigate to that folder. It should be called, oh, I was already in that folder. Yeah, I didn't realize SDK spawn. So what I'm going to do is node index.js. And yeah, we're receiving our first couple of errors. Let's try to debug these. Oh well, we need to do something different here that I had forgotten to do probably. Yep. So first thing first, you need to change this file to MJS rather than JS. For common JS, you need to do MJS. Also the wallet, after reading the wallet, you need to parse it at JSON. So you do JSON.parse, you need to parse the JSON. So you save and clear these. Now, if you do node index.mjs, this is going to work as expected. As you can see, we have a process ID here. We copy that, go to AOLink. AOLink is right here. Put that process in and just double check if everything worked as expected. Just checking here. Yep, SDK spawn process. And as you can see, another process has been spawned from the SDK as well. Now, in a front-end environment like a React, you would literally do the same. The only thing that would change is instead of using wallet here, you would use something like window.arrive wallet. I think yeah, the browser exposes this object to you, or the window browser exposes this object. But other than that, the process stays the same. You have your module ID and your scheduler here. Yeah, and everything just works as expected, as you can see here. And that is how you spawn your process in different ways depending on your use case. You can spawn your process from the CLI. You can spawn your process programmatically from your Lua code, or you can spawn your process from the SDK, both in a Node.js environment and the browser environment. And if you want to learn more about the SDK, you can check the name of the SDK here. It's called @permaweb/AOConnect. So yeah, with that said, see you folks in the next video, and let's build the PermaWeb together.